There we go. I'm now recording. Um, so for anyone tuning into the recording, this is my second workshop it's just the three of us. Oh, we've got a fourth person joining us. Just give Michael an opportunity to join us. Hello, Michael.
Hello.
Hi there. Hi, Michael. Welcome. We were just about to start, and then I saw you flash up, and I thought, well, let's give you an opportunity to join us. You don't want to miss the best bit, which is the beginning. Actually, it's all going to be best. So, Michael, will you tell us where you're based and your role? Are you a youth worker? Are you new to post? Have you been doing it for years?
Yeah, I'm a youth minister. Only started in September. First ever youth job. I'm at Chapel Town, St John's, and I'm sorry, Alex. Your friend John Harper told me to get in touch with you in November, and I still haven't had a chance to do it yet. So
no, don't worry. No, that's fine. Yeah.
But I recognised your name as soon as I saw it. I was like, oh, this is the John. This is the Alex that I'm supposed to contact.
Yeah, no, that was fine. Don't worry. You can go for a coffee sometime. That'd be great. Well, when we can, obviously, in the moment.
Yeah. So I'm very brand new to it. So as soon as I saw a workshop that said what I wish I knew 20 years ago, I was like, maybe I should know that now, only 6 months into my job. So that would be
good. Well, I hope it's a helpful workshop for you, Michael. And I was just saying to Alex and Nicola that really I hope it's a conversation. You know, I've been in youth ministry for nearly 20 years, but I'm not an expert. I don't know everything. And you've probably all got something to bring to the conversation. So I'm really happy for this to be a conversation rather than me just telling you what I think is true. So I'll introduce myself. My name's Andrew. I'm married to Michelle, and we have 3 young children, Jacob, Abby, and Noah. I like walking, I like running and watching films, but not all at the same time. I find that I trip over when I watch films whilst running and walking. It just doesn't work. So I do them separately. We've got a chocolate Labrador called Obi, as in Obi-Wan Kenobi. The children might have had a say in his name. And like most people nowadays, I'm a little bit fed up of Zoom, and I am looking forward to seeing people in real life, you know, outdoors or in the house and having a meal together and just doing relationships and life the way I'm used to. I can't wait for that. Professionally, I've been a youth worker now for nearly 20 years. I'm currently at St Luke's Church in Lodgemoor, which is right on the edge of Sheffield. If you go to Sheffield and go to the very edge, just before you meet the fields and the sheep, you'll see me. That's where I am. Prior to St Luke's in Lodgemoor, I was at a church called St Chad's in Woodseats, which is on the south side of Sheffield. I have a degree in youth work, community work, and applied theology from CYM. And you may well have noticed one of the adverts is from CYM. When I was with them, it was the Centre for Youth Ministry. I think it's now the Centre for Youth Mission, but it's still CYM. I graduated there in 2005. But like I say, I'm not an expert. I've learnt some things over the years. I hope I've picked up some helpful tips, but I'd like this to be a conversation. And really my aim is to share with you what I consider my 5 top tips to be. But if you ask me next week, my 5 top tips could be very different, and your 5 top tips might be different. And, you know, this isn't, in an hour's workshop, I can't do a full kind of expose on the theory of youth work, but I can just share with you my 5 tips from the last 20 years of youth work. I know we've sort of, I've spoken to Nicola sort of separately, and then I know Alex a little bit, and Michael's just introduced himself, but Nicola and Alex, just for the others in the room, would you just let us know your youth work context and where you're based, please? Nicola, ladies first.
Did see Alex unmute quickly. Yeah, so I'm in Bedworth Parish, which is just north of Coventry. It's a kind of town sort of parish. So yeah, fairly hustle bustle, but could be quieter than some contexts. I began as a families worker last May. In the midst of first lockdown, and it's a new church to me, so yeah, there's been lots to try and navigate very digitally, and youth work just we seem to have just disconnected with a lot of the youth. I'm told. So yeah, and they're all zoomed out, etc., etc. So just looking for a little bit of invigoration. That's one of my daughters.
Well,
So.
Hello. I hope you get some invigoration from this conversation, but I hope the whole day is invigorating to you. But it's great to have you with us. Alex, I know you, and it sounds like Michael might know you a little bit, just for Nicola, I suppose. Will you tell us your youth work context, please?
Yeah, so I'm the Youth and Children's Minister at St Tim's in Crooks, Sheffield, and I've been Youth Minister for the last 8 years. To 2013 January I started, so yeah, it's and I've been in a paid role in the church in 2016 as Youth and Children's Minister, and I work part-time then. I'm also a part-time primary school teacher as well. So yeah, just always like chatting about youth work and networking, and that for me is always the best part of joining a conference, is having these conversations with people. So yeah, I thought it'd be good to join them with this one today.
Excellent. Right, well, it's great to have you with us. Like I say, I'm going to do 5 of my top tips. I'll have some screens to share with you as well, but yeah, do please join in and ask questions, or feel free to disagree or anything like that. You're very welcome to. So they are just my top tips. It's not a full breakdown of theory of youth work ministry, but top tip number 1 is love. You've got to love it, I believe. The starting point has to be a love for the young people, all the children you work with. In my experience, your motivation can't be the career prospects. There's little scope for climbing the career ladder to promotion and pay rises. I don't think youth work is something you do for the money. That's my experience. You've got to love it. I think youth ministry is a calling, it's a passion, it's a deep seated love. And our faith is ultimately all about love, isn't it? And I'm sure in this room, I don't need to remind you of that, but just a couple of Bible passages stood out to me. I mean, the Bible talks an awful lot about love. If you put a Google search for love in the Bible, you get a lot of passages. I could have chosen any. I chose, hold on, let me just go. That's the end of my last. How can I? Right, hold on. Let's just load that up outside of there. This was all set up for my previous one. There we go. So 1 Corinthians 16, verse 14, all that you do, let it be done in love. Love is the heart of our Christian faith, and I think it's got to be the heart of doing youth work, a love for the young people particularly. Now will it tab? Yeah, and then this one from 1 John 3:18. Let us not love with words or speech, but with our actions and in truth. It's like a parallel verse to the passage in James where it says, faith without deeds is dead. For me, youth work is something I do because of my love for young people. And I really believe that you need a love for them. I would dare to say that actually having an authentic love for young people is perhaps even more important than skills in youth work. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't be skilled in youth work, but I've known a number of youth workers who academically are far superior to me, people with masters in youth work, and I'm not dismissing any of that, but what I'm saying is actually what you need is a love for them. It's great to have a master's as well, as long as you've got the love, but actually if you don't have a master's, if you don't have a degree in youth work, if you have a heart for them and you love them, then that's all the credentials you need. You just need to love young people. Young people are interested in authenticity, and an authentic love for young people is the starting point for youth work. And by all means, supplement your love for it by doing some training, getting a master's, but I think it's got to start with love. And I think when youth ministry gets hard, and it will, knowing that you love the young people will help keep you motivated. The number of times I know I've got a youth group in the evening and I'm just not feeling it, but it's the love for the young people that motivates me to plan and get that group ready. And when I'm with them, when we hold a lot of stuff in our home under normal circumstances, when they're in the home, they energize, they refresh, they challenge me. And it's a relationship with young people, and any relationship has got to have a foundation of love, I think. So my top tip is, number one is love. And what I'd like you to think about, maybe discuss, or maybe write down, what is it that you love about working with young people? For me, it's the honesty of young people. They're brutally honest. I love their energy and their enthusiasm. I love their new ideas as well, their fresh thinking and their questioning. They ask tough questions and they make me really wrestle with my faith. And so what is it that you love about young people? Maybe someone wants to chip in at this point.
The energy. Yeah, the energy, and like you say, their honesty. And I think, if you're not authentic with them, they just see right through it anyway, don't they? And it's got, the groundings has got to be through that authentic relationship. And I think that is what is so lacking for them at the minute. And the lack of that connection is, but yeah, their energy and like you say, like the way that they make us grapple with our faith as well, and those big issues and topics, and they educate me, to be fair, as well. Until fairly recently, I thought I was sort of down with the kids, but it's obviously not the case now. But the way that they educate me about what their world looks like, and the stuff that challenges them and that confuses them and all that sort of stuff, and just journeying with them is just, that's great.
I think,
Thanks, Nicola.
Yeah, I think I would agree absolutely, Nicola, with what you say, and just like their zest for life, their willingness to try new things, think outside the box, to be innovative, creative. I think, I'm not saying adults are like that as well, because adults can be, but I think they don't have the same barriers young children, young people do that. I think they're more willing to kind of try new things and just run with things as well. And I'm very excited by the potential. I think these young people are going to go out there and change the world. I genuinely believe that. And I remember someone once saying, our ceiling should be their floor, about building the next generation. And I think that really excites me, to build up people who are going to go on to do far greater things than we've done. And that really excites me, what they can achieve.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Anything to add, Michael?
No, they pretty much covered everything. The question, the fact that they're a lot more open to different opinions than adults. So adults can get constrained by, this is what my viewpoint is, and I want you to accept it. Whereas I find it amazing and liberating that it's a lot easier to share the gospel with young people, because they're willing to question your thinking, but you let you question their thinking, so that they can go, oh, well, actually, I've been told it's science or nothing. And then you start going, well, what about this? And they're like, oh, well, actually, yeah, I can listen to that. Whereas adults be like, no, it's science or no religion. You can't have both. And so it's just fascinating that they're willing to be more open about exploring faith than adults can be at times.
Awesome. Yeah, excellent. What I'd encourage you to do is, there will be times where youth ministry can be hard, and where you don't feel like you love it, and you don't feel like you love the young people. So I suppose my tip for you would be to remember, or to jot down, or to tattoo on your forehead the reasons why you love young people and youth work. And when you are struggling, just to remind yourself what it is you're in there for. I'm a married man, and I'll speak honestly. In a relationship, a long-term relationship, been married over 15 years, you don't always feel in love with your partner like you did when you were just going out. Sometimes love is hard work. Sometimes they've got a cold and there's snot running down the nose and your wife sounds like a man. And, actually love is you sometimes just need to remind yourself of the love that you had when you first met and the commitment you made on your wedding days, the vows you made, the promises you made. It's almost like there's a promise here to the young people. And when they've got snot dribbling down their noses, when they're not interested in you and all they can do is grunt at you, just a reminder of why you love them can help you get through those tough times. So top tip number 1, love them. Top tip number 2 is about team. Jesus' first thing he did when he started his ministry was to get a team around him. He chose his 12 disciples. And I think the first thing you should do in youth ministry is get a team around you. I think this applies whether you're new to youth ministry or whether you're revitalizing your youth ministry or you're thinking of relaunching your youth ministry in a post-COVID world. You need a team around you. Now, Jesus had 12, and I'm not suggesting you need a team of 12. You'll probably know that Jesus had this inner circle, Peter, James, and John. 4 people made up this inner circle. And I think 4 is a really good number for a team, but I don't want to be particularly prescriptive. It worked well for me. I think youth work can be lonely and isolating. I found it easy at times to get isolated as a youth worker. I'd go about my business of running Sunday morning groups elsewhere in the church building. I'd be doing midweek evening youth groups in my home or somewhere else. I'd be away on weekends on day trips and conferences and residentials. I actually just felt alone and isolated at times. And I found it tricky to develop and think through a vision and strategy for the work. I had no one to bounce my ideas off. And at times I've become stale and isolated. At my previous church, St. Chad's, there was a couple who had children the same age as ours, and we became friends. That friendship developed organically into a small youth team, my wife and I, and Tim and Emily. And they came on board with our midweek Bible study group, and they helped me think through and develop the youth work at St. Chad's. When I moved to St. Luke's in 2011, I wanted to employ a similar strategy. So I was intentional in identifying people to join me and the youth work core team. After a few months, there was another couple. Now, it doesn't always have to be couples, but it happened to be another couple that stood out. Their children were a bit older than ours. In fact, their children were in the youth work that I was running. But this couple displayed a passion and an energy for me and the youth work that we were doing. So we got to know them and we invited them to join us in developing the work. John and Naomi have since moved on. Both their boys are now at university. But Paul and Claire, another couple, are now part of my small team. And genuinely, it doesn't have to be a couple. It's just the way it's worked. It's probably a reflection of the fact that it's me and my wife running the youth work, and we probably get another couple to come and join us. But it's about getting this core group of people for whom you know that they are invested in you, in your role, and you can use them as a sounding board for your ideas. They can support you at meetings, at trustee level, at putting papers together. And I think it's really important that you have this core team to start thinking about your ideas and letting it grow. I felt supported and encouraged. And I think that me and my work has flourished having a small team around me to bounce ideas off and hold me accountable. So for you to think about, if you don't have a team as yet, who could be your team? Who is it that's expressing an interest in you and your ministry? And if you are in a position where you do have a team, have a think through what it is you might want to achieve with your team, particularly, again, in this post-COVID world we're hoping to enter, perhaps from September. What is it that you're going to be doing from September with your youth work? What's it going to look like when groups open up again? Who's going to attend them? What's going to happen with residentials? Are all the young people going to return? And I think if you have got a team, now's a really good time to start the discussion about what youth work is going to look like in a post-COVID world. So they're my 2 takeaways. Who's your team? Who could your team be if you don't have one? If you do have one, start thinking about what youth work might look like, hopefully from September if things go well. Does anyone want to add into that at this stage, or shall I move on to top tip 3?
Was Andy going to speak? Alex going to speak first?
No, so you go for it, Michael. It's fine.
So yeah, obviously I'm completely brand new to this kind of thing, so I am lucky that I have a team, but I don't really at this stage know how to use them effectively. So they just sort of turn up as a volunteer, making up the safeguard numbers. They obviously have a passion to be there. A couple of them help me once every 6 weeks by doing a talk to free me up from doing a talk. But other than that, that's really all I get to do. And because they're volunteers, they've got full-time jobs. I don't want to burden them. So how do you make sure that you actually are using them to help the youth group to develop into the best it can be, to help you, to free you up so that you can think about how to develop the youth rather than focusing on everything and yeah, just I don't know how to deploy, because they're volunteers mainly and you don't know what to do with them. Sorry, Alex, go on.
I was going to say that, yeah, I've in a similar position in terms of I'm the only paid youth worker in the church. But I think for us, I guess team has been so important. I mean, a lot of the people on the team are my friends and people who we've kind of shared a lot of our life together. And I think praying together for our young people is so important, because particularly on Zoom, it's been really hard because there hasn't been a lot they've been able to do other than lead kind of discussions in breakout rooms, because I've had to do a lot of the planning. It's been harder for them to prepare things, but actually meeting together to talk about the young people, having that in a pre-COVID and post-COVID world, having meeting to eat together, have fellowship together, have time together just for socializing as a team. I think that's equally, if not more important sometimes than the actual youth work, because if the team is really strong and really passionate and committed to the young people, then the youth work's going to be great. But if the team is there's been times in the past when our team has been a bit fragmented, and it's shown in the youth work. So that's kind of really showed me how important the team is.
Yeah, thanks, Alex, and thanks, Mike. I guess I'm seeing 2 levels of team, I suppose, back to the model that Jesus demonstrated, almost like a macro and a micro team. You've got the 12 disciples, and Jesus spends time and invests in them and eats with them. Then he has this very core inner group who he almost invests in them in a slightly more special way, a bit more intentional and focused. And I see my broader team of volunteers and helpers who turn up at this, that, and the other as perhaps my 12 disciples, my macro team. But identifying your micro team is slightly different. And I think, like Alex said, it's perhaps a friendship thing. So the first time it happened to me, it was accidental and organic. I just got to know Tim and Emily. They were interested in me. They expressed an interest in the youth work I was doing. They were excited about what I was talking about. I was able to talk about some of my ideas and thoughts. They chipped in with their thoughts and ideas. And I said, come and join me. And then when I came to St. Luke's, I was like, I need to try and replicate that model, because that was a good thing. And it took me a few months, but we were running a charity car wash, and the kids were running it with help from volunteers. We were washing cars, but we were selling cakes and coffee in the hall as well. And there was a couple of adults who came along to sort of get their car washed, and for their youth to help. But they just threw themselves into helping out with the car wash. And when we ran out of buckets, the dad jumped in his car and drove down to Halfords and bought loads of buckets and sponges and came back up, and they just threw themselves into it. And I thought, these guys are invested in the youth work. They've got 2 kids in the youth work. They've thrown themselves into this. So we invited them for dinner. Obviously, you could do that in those days. We got to know them. They were interested in me. They were interested in the youth work, a vested interest, if you like, because their kids were in it. But I said, come join me. Come and be part of the team. Come on, let's get this youth work ball rolling. Let's get some ideas and bat them around. So I think maybe I've landed lucky with who I've got, but it's identifying someone who you believe is interested in what you're doing and investing in them and getting them to invest in you and the youth work.
Well, how do you invest in them once you've found them? Because I don't have a background of academic youth work. I'm luckily I was chosen to have the job because of the love and the passion, which luckily you've just told me is more important than the academic, which is great. But it means that I know as part of my role in the coming months and years, I'm supposed to be training up leaders, which terrifies me, which is probably part of the reason I don't want to properly get alongside my leaders, because I know eventually I'm going to be in charge of training them. But I mean, how do you then, once you've identified someone, build up that without it terrifying you that you've got to be, does that make sense? I'm not asking my question very well. So how did you build up that relationship with those people that then invest, that you realize you're investing time? What does it look like?
It was very informal, if I'm honest. It was a meal, it was a glass of wine, it was a friendship. A bit like what Jesus did with his disciples. You know, they sat down and they ate a lot. When I read the Bible, maybe I've got blinkered vision, but I see Jesus sitting around with his friends and eating a lot. So I try and do that with my leaders and my young people. So again, micro, with my small team, it's an intimate, you know, a curry or a meal together. Macro, we have a termly cheese and wine evening with all our volunteers. They're all invited to come, and it's just an area to talk and support them. I might share a Bible passage with them, or some kind of, you know, try and inspire them in terms of the youth work a little bit. But I think social, I wouldn't feel under pressure to impart leadership with them. I would just love them and encourage them to love the young people. I'll recommend a book. I'm going to recommend it at the end, but I think this is a really helpful book. So my top tips are my top tips, but as I reflected on my workshops, I picked up this book and I had a look through this, and you know, there's some really good stuff in this. Whether you are new to youth work, or whether you are rethinking your youth ministry, or thinking about relaunching youth ministry post-COVID, I think this is an excellent book with some really good tips in. And you know, leadership and skills and experience will come. Love is a gift, and if you love it and you love the young people, then you can't learn that in a book or on a course. That's why I think it starts with love, and the kids want to be loved. They don't really care necessarily what your curriculum is, but we'll come to that in a minute. But is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So
Okay.
You don't have to see yourself as like a lecturer imparting knowledge to build up a better team of leaders. I like the fact you said, no, make it social and just build relationships. That's more important than academic. How do you, like, explaining to them how they might share the gospel in a really formal way or something. So it was liberating to hear you say that.
Yeah, and you know, that may well come in time. You may pick up techniques and skills. It may be that there's people on your team who are naturally evangelistic, who may be able to share their thoughts with how to share the gospel with young people that you can learn from. So there are people on my team who feed into me as well. So I think it will come, but I think it starts with love and relationships. These are good questions. This is more interaction than I had in my last workshop with more people. So this is good. I'm going to move on to tip 3. We've done love, we've done team. Now you've got a team, I think it's time to plan. What are you doing? Why? Where do you want the youth work or the young people to be in 1 year or 3 year or 5 years time? And how will you get there? Obviously, I'm talking about vision and strategy. You need a plan. So I think now you've got a small core team, it's time to evaluate the youth work you're currently doing and think about what you might want it to look like in the future. Pray about it in your small team, discuss it and bounce it around. Let it sit with you for a while. I don't know about you guys, but I often have a great idea of something I want to do in the youth work, and I go to my team and they think, yeah, great idea, and we refine it a little bit, and we want to start it next week, but it often turns out that God says, no, give it a year. It's God's timing's often much longer than our timing, and he sows the seed, and we're keen to see it happen, but it doesn't have to happen straight away. But having a plan, I think, is vital. You may well have some of your own ideas as a youth worker, but you need to take your team with you. Let them own it and challenge it and tweak it. And that's your micro team, and at the right time, your macro team. I think you get your micro team, your core team with you on board, and you let that idea develop. And then you take it out there to your wider team and say, this is where we're thinking of going. What do you think? What thoughts have you got on it? Once you have a plan, That plan's going to need volunteer support, financial support, venues to meet in, safeguarding implications, health and safety implications, prayer support, and much more. So with your plan, with your vision and strategy for the youth work, you need to go to your vicar or your PCC, your trustees, your leadership team, share it with them and ask them for their support to get behind you and your team financially, prayerfully, with their time, in every way possible. They need to support it. Now, obviously, in an hour's workshop, we're not going to work out a vision for each of our ministries today, but I've got some screens I'm going to share with you just to help you think through year 1, year 2, and year 3. This is a model that's worked for me. If it helps you, great. If it doesn't, then no problem. Why is this not working? Oh, there we go. I have to click. I thought the arrows would work. They did earlier. Year 1. We'll start at the bottom left, because I think this is perhaps the starting point, is get to know your community. What is the demographic of the church community where you are based? Is it all retired people? Is it students? Is it families? Is it a mix? We call it a community profile, but get to know your community. What are the youth workers available? You know, you might go into a job and go, right, the first thing I want to do is run a Friday night group, and you open this Friday night group and no kids coming. It turns out that somewhere down the road is running a Friday night youth club, and you're just duplicating something and seeing nothing from it. So assess your community. Who are the people in your community? What else is going on? Another thing that I introduced fairly early on at St Luke's Church was the residentials. Something I did at my previous church at St Chad's, but they'd got no history of it here at St Luke's. So when I said, do you want to go to the Soul Survivor Summer Festival? They were like, no, no interest at all. They didn't really know what it was, even though I showed them the video. So I convinced them to go for a day, and we did a day trip, and they loved it. And the next year we took a group full of young people, and the next year it was a bigger group, and so on. So I think residentials are such a key time for young people, that sense of belonging, and so much can happen on a residential. If you compare the hour a week you might have with a young person and a group talking about the Bible compared to a weekend away where you can have, let's say your kids are awake for 12 hours a day, that's 24 hours of solid opportunity to talk about our faith. And it's hard to underestimate the value of residentials. So that might be something you look at in year 1. And maybe running an introduction to Christianity course, something like Youth Alpha. There are other Christian introduction courses available. We actually run Youth Alpha. We've tried a few of them, but Youth Alpha in recent years, they released some new videos with Ben and Jerry, or whatever the names are, in Canada. And they do these really light-hearted, fun, but kind of with great content as well. And our young people love the videos. So I recommend and enjoy Youth Alpha, but you've got to use what works for you. So that could be your plan for year 1. Year 2 might look like this. Stronger links with schools in your area. You might want to look at launching a community youth club, or launching a Bible study group, or launching a new group. So when I moved to St Luke's, we had a Bible study midweek group for teenagers, but there was nothing for the junior aged kids. So not the really young ones, but your 8 to 11-year-olds, the ones that were just about to join the youth group. And so we launched a new Bible study group. What's a Bible ship group? It's like discipleship with Bible study. It's perhaps a name, the Bible ship group. I like that. Yeah, we launched a new group for the 8 to 11-year-olds. It's only a small group, but it's a great stepping stone for them from childhood to sort of teenager. And we found it's just been a real blessing to families in the community of Lodgemoor to have somewhere for that age group to just go a little bit deeper with their Bible before they join the youth group. And also maybe year 2, once the youth project is established, you've got to know your community, you've got groups up and running, you've got You've got a group of kids who've perhaps done an introduction to Christianity course and made a commitment to Jesus, or renewed their commitment to Jesus. That's the time to maybe get them running something for the younger ones, maybe a junior group, maybe just helping out at a creche on a Sunday morning, but giving them some sort of responsibility to get involved. We're lucky that we have some musical young people, and they play in the music team sometimes. It depends on who's leading the music. Some of our music leaders feel able to support and nurture our young people, some don't, and I respect that. But that could be a plan for year 2, and then year 3 might look something like launching a youth congregation, maybe having some kind of baptism or confirmation, affirmation, some kind of celebration of those young people who've come to faith over the last 3 years. And it may be after 3 years in post, you've got some young people who are leaving school or moving to university, and what's your strategy for working with them? Because that's the point at which they start to step away from youth work, and you want them to go off into the adult world, whether that's jobs, vocational or university or educational, and take their faith with them, and to continue investing in their faith. So we use a resource from the Fusion movement, which is just a 4-session workbook that's preparing young people for uni, and we do that with our guys in sixth form. We do it in the last term, so the Easter to the summer, we do these sessions, prepare them for uni. But yeah, having a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, or if you know you're going to be in post for a long time, maybe even a 10-year plan. What do you want your youth work to look like? But do that with your core team, and then take it out to your bigger team, and then take it out to your church and get them to support it with their time, with their money, with their prayers. So have a think about your plan and what it might look like. It looks like Michael's taking notes of my excellent work here, so I won't. Have you got that all down?
That's why.
I mean, it's absolute gold.
I just do wonder, what did DTI stand for when you were talking about doing residentials? What does the acronym DTI stand for?
It sounds like a sexually transmitted infection, doesn't it? But at the festivals, we have same-sex tents, so it's not that. So Soul Survivor was the big summer festival that we were going to as a church, but that came to an end in 2019, and Soul Survivor recommended some alternative festivals, not alternative, like alternatives to Soul Survivor. And DTI was the one that our young people, what we did is we showed them the marketing videos for various conferences and festivals. They chose DTI, so it's dreaming the impossible. We were going to go to that last year, but it was cancelled, and we've decided that we probably won't go this year, although we might be we might have a change of heart on that if things are allowed to go ahead. We don't know, we've not decided yet, but yeah, a summer festival. Any questions on tip 3? Any comments on having a plan?
I think the strategy side of things is the area that I struggle most with. I get all like, yeah, what are we doing next week? Like, what's the next Zoom about? And all that sort of stuff. And I struggle to kind of look at that bigger picture. So, and the other thing in terms of team, just kind of overlapping the two, is that I'm the paid families worker. I'm part-time, but under my umbrella, I think it's a bit of work on, like, I'm not the one to do it all. Like, I've just suddenly appeared as this paid church worker, and therefore it seems to have naturally felt like the youth volunteers that were leading and stuff are just instantly looked to me to try and run everything. So yeah, I don't know if anyone's ever experienced that, where you've got paid staff and the volunteers, and like, how do you navigate that shift of responsibility, or perceived shift of responsibility, in the same time as loving and encouraging and all that sort of stuff? Like, how do you go, this isn't just my job? Like, it's great to have you guys on board and I want to use you guys. And I guess that's my kind of thought and feeling as we kind of move towards like September and thinking about a plan and strategy? How do I kind of bring them back out of COVID life and go, you are still so valuable, and like, yeah, your time is needed. So
I mean, I want to say I think you've answered the question yourself. Those things you've said, you need to say to your team, and I don't want to oversimplify it, but I also don't want it to seem overly complicated. You need to tell those people that they're loved, they're valued, you need them, and you can't wait to get back to doing youth work at some point. And shall we meet up on Zoom and just catch up and just reconnect with your team and tell them how valuable they are and how vital they are to the ministry, and that you can't do it alone, and you're here to lead and encourage and inspire them, but actually they're the ones that do it. So yeah, perhaps just a meet up, and then when allowed, could you do a barbecue in the church garden? I don't know whether you've got a church garden, but could you have some kind of event? I think youth work is as much about investing in your volunteers, like Alex said, as much as investing in the young people, because if you have a great team of volunteers, you're going to do great youth work, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're going to come on to this, Andrew, but when we think about strategy, I guess vision is kind of comes hand in hand with that. And I think having a clear vision is so important, because there's lots of great things like we can do that young people enjoy, but does it fit into your vision of what you're doing? I mean, that's something we've worked quite hard in the last kind of few years and try to really streamline what we're doing. And actually, discipleship is kind of at the heart of what we're about, and that's why we've kind of moved away from, say, the drop-in youth club model and more into actually having groups which we talk about Jesus, shock horror, and we read the Bible with them. And actually, exactly, and what we've found to our amazement is that actually most of the people who come to the youth clubs are not Christians. I never thought they would engage. They have, but it's I guess I like to think of it quite almost like a negative analogy of like when you slowly turn the temperature up with a frog in boiling water until they don't realise that's kind of what we've done is we've brought things in. Sit back. They think, oh, it's only a tiny bit of Christian input, but actually it's like a 10-minute, 20-minute talk and then a 40-minute discussion, and they think that's quite, it's not much, but actually we've built that up over a long period of time with them. So yeah.
Thanks, Alex. Yeah, I think it's so important to have an end game in mind, not an end game in terms of your job, but an end game of what you would like to see the youth work looking like in a year, in 3 years, in 5 years, and therefore what do we do in order to get there? So the 3 years is your vision, your strategy is what you do to get to that vision. And the beauty of vision and strategy is it gives you something to focus on, and generally you might not achieve that full vision, but then you reassess and go, well, we didn't achieve that, but what's our vision now? And it gives you a framework for why you do what you do. I mean, some churches do really just focus on discipleship. The youth work is there to look after the kids who come in the church with their parents and disciple those. Some churches are more for outreach and detached work, and some churches are doing a bit of both. But I think thinking, where do we want to be? What do we want this to look like in a year's time, in 5 years' time, and letting that shape your strategy. Right, we're 2:45, so I should probably move on to top tip number 4. I don't want to move on too quickly though, but I want to get through all my 5 top tips because they're gold dust, these things. They're invaluable, priceless, my 5 top tips. They really are. Top tip number 4 for me is communicate. I mentioned in top tip 2 that I find youth work can sometimes be quite isolating. I don't know about you, but many people in the congregation just might not see what it is that you are being paid to do. So I think communication is vital. I think communicate with as many people as possible, as often as is reasonable, and in as many ways as you can think of. I think communication with your church congregation will take your congregation with you, will take your trustees, your leadership team, your PCC, your volunteers, and your parents with you. Once you've come up with your plan and your vision, sell it with your church, and be specific. Ask them to join in with this exciting vision and mission you're on. Ask them to join in with their time, with their money, with their prayers, and even better if they can do all 3. in terms of communication, I would strongly suggest that you write termly newsletters to your congregation. I don't know about you, but in my church, we've got a lot of older people, and what they like more than anything is a little piece of paper with a couple of photos and a few sentences about the youth work and the children's work that we're doing. But we also do things online and through social media. So I have WhatsApp chat groups with the parents, with my leaders and volunteers, team specific. So our Friday night youth club has a WhatsApp chat group. Our Thursday night Bible study group has a WhatsApp leadership chat group. And they feel supported and they feel part of the group and connected with, and they can send me messages and I can reply and stuff like that. I find that really helpful. What you've got to be careful of sometimes, though, is boundaries. And there are times where I have to just put my phone to one side, say 10 o'clock at night, and if I get a message, I've just got to ignore it. And it's difficult sometimes because some of the volunteers are my very good friends. And there's a fine line between they're my volunteers, but they're also my friends. So you have to work out your own boundaries. And I'm not sure I've got that sorted myself yet. But I think having a WhatsApp chat group, there are downsides, but I think the plus sides are vital for me. I have a presence on social media, not massive, but Facebook is great for connecting with the parents generally. I'm not on TikTok yet. I mean, I'm 43 years old and I've only really just come to terms with Instagram and Twitter. I know all the young people are probably on TikTok, but I am on Instagram and Twitter as well, but it doesn't really do anything for me. But it's a presence. People see something of what we are doing at St. Luke's because we have a presence on social media. Another thing we launched at my previous church in St. Chad's, which was, I didn't bring much from St. Chad's, but I brought my intention to form a core team. And I brought something called Bacon and Prayers, or if you're a vegetarian, you could call it Bacon and Prayers if you want to, but I'm all about the bacon, I'll be honest. Once a month on a Saturday morning, we gather in church for a bacon sandwich, a cup of coffee, and to pray for the youth work and children's work. My initial hope with that is that the volunteers would come and give up their time on a Saturday morning and pray for the young people we work with. And they didn't. And at first I was really disappointed, but then I found myself thinking, well, that's all right. They're volunteers. They help out during the week. And actually what we're going to do instead is pray for them. Rather than them praying for the young people, we're going to pray for the volunteers and the young people. And the people who come to Bacon and Prayers are a random, eclectic mix of people who aren't involved with the youth work. They don't volunteer, but they long to see the youth work and the children's work prosper. And every month they gather together, they hear us talk about the ideas we've developed, what we've been doing, what we're hoping to do, and they pray for us for an hour. And it's awesome. And I genuinely feel that that was a real kind of game changer at St. Chad's, that we started talking about our plans, we started praying about it, and things started happening. So we've continued doing that at St. Luke's Church. And that's about prayer and communication. And I encourage you as well, as the youth worker, you are the voice for your young people at committees, leadership teams, trustee meetings, PCCs. You've then been employed to fight for the young people at those meetings. When people are talking about the colour of the carpets or the length of the curtains, actually you need to get the young people onto the agenda and get that discussed. It can be tempting to say, oh, we want young people on this meeting. Personally, I would say don't get a young person to go to a PCC meeting. I think it'll wreck them because most PCC meetings wreck me. But you are their voice there. So tell your young people that you represent them at the PCC meeting so they know they can talk to you and that you will then take that to your leadership. Whatever structures you've got in your church, you are the representative. It's like an MP in Parliament, isn't it? We go to our local MP and then he speaks for us in the Houses of Parliament and decisions are made. You are the representative of your young people to the leadership of your church. So you might be the hardest worker, 5 nights a week at youth groups, away at weekends on residentials and day trips, but your congregation don't see you. So communicate with them. So my question for you is, if you're not communicating that much with the wider church, which of those things that I've mentioned are you up for? And if there's something that you do to communicate that I've not mentioned, then please let me know, because there's some great experience in this room. And which one are you going to do if you're not currently doing one? So We've only got 8 minutes and I've got one more tip to go. So really briefly, what way of communication are you going to do? Or if I've not mentioned one that you do, let me know, please.
I think yeah, social media. I wasn't very savvy with Instagram, but I have this year learnt. I've been shown how to use it, and actually it's been really helpful, because actually a lot of our youth are on Instagram, and they've seen a lot of the posts that I've posted, and they like them, and it also shows some of our congregation what we're doing with the youth group in lockdown, what we've been doing. But actually what I haven't done is newsletters. Never had that. We do like an AGM report once a year, which is good. But actually having something a bit more bite-sized over the course of the year, I think I might, when we go back to doing face-to-face youth work, I might start that. So thanks for that. That's a good idea, actually.
Excellent. Yeah, we do one a term, and it's A5. Is that half an A4? It is, isn't it? Yeah, A5. And on one side it's the youth work, on one side it's the children's work, and it goes to everyone in church over a couple of Sunday mornings, so everyone hears about what we're doing, and they can get behind it and support us.
Yeah, we have like a news sheet. We're sort of dabbling with Church Suite and things like that. So I'm thinking, yeah, similar kind of idea. Like, actually, this is what's going on behind the scenes, and this is how you can pray for us. I really like that. Yeah, that bacon and prayers, and actually, emerging from COVID and everything, I think that might be a space to kind of explore who might want to get more involved in that area of ministry as well. So kind of double-edged. But yeah, I think the newsletter, we have a general kind of parish one, but I think get specific and say, in this area of stuff, this is what's going on, this is what we'd really value prayer for, and I think that's a good idea.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, Fiona's here just to check in on me, so we should probably make a start on the workshop, actually, because we've only got 6 minutes left. What I'm going to do is move on to tip 5, because we have only got 6 minutes left. Tip 5 is that it's not a competition. Where we are at St Luke's, on one side, it's literally fields and sheep. On the other side, there's quite a large church that's doing really well, and on the other side there's another quite large church doing well, and it would be really easy to compare what we do with the fields of sheep. No, not with them, but with the churches that sort of surround us. And I want to say, don't. It can be easy to fall into that trap. If you have 4 young people in your youth group, that's 4 young people's lives that you're making a difference in. Just because the church down the road or around the corner gets 40 or 400 young people, it doesn't diminish the value of what you're doing. Each life is valuable. I can only work with what I've got in Lodgemoor. For example, we don't actually have a student population here in Lodgemoor. They're a mile down the road in Crooks and Foulkes. So we don't have a student ministry, and there's not really much point as trying to invest our time and energy into that. Those churches are doing a great job with their student ministries, and ultimately we're all serving the same purpose, the same God. So I can just let them get on with that. They're doing great, no problem. And the young people that we have that leave to go off to uni join in with that stuff, and that's great. What we do have in Lodgemoor is a lot of families with younger children, and so we work to our strengths. They live on our doorsteps, so we run family-oriented events and activities, like parties at Halloween, Christingles at Christmas, events at Easter, and we invite children and families to come along. The young people we've got then get involved and staff it and run it for us, and they've got a sense of belonging then, which I think is so important. So tip 5 is, don't compare yourself with the church around the corner or down the road. Get on with where God's put you and serve your community. Obviously, having got to know it, got your team, and come up with a plan. It's not a competition. We're all serving the same God. I've got 2 bonus tips before we finish. And bonus tip number 1 is enjoy it. You've got to enjoy it. And it's linked in with the love one. But do you know what? I think you've got to just enjoy youth work and have a smile. And again, young people are looking for authenticity. If you don't enjoy youth work, then you're going to get found out. And so, yeah, you've got to enjoy it. And I think tip number 2, and I've mentioned it already sort of, is get your young people to lead, whether that's just helping at a creche on a Sunday morning, or whether it's having a go and leading the Sunday service. Give them a chance. I know that your young people aren't perfect, but actually, let's be honest, our church leaders aren't perfect because no one's perfect. So give your young people a chance to lead, support them, go on that journey with them, give them permission to get it wrong, but give them a chance to lead. Just, I don't know whether that's popped up on your screen. So very quickly, before we finish, there we go. There are my top tips. It's not an exhaustive list, but I think you've got to love it. Get a team around you. With your team, make a plan. Once you've got a plan, communicate that with as many people as you can in as many ways as you can, and then get on with it. And don't worry about the churches nearby. Get on with your ministry, get on with your calling. And when you're doing it, enjoy it and get your young people to have a go at leading. Because I think young people, a lot of the adults that I speak to that are still Christians, they had a role to play as a young person. I think if young people don't have a role to play, there'll be other things that grab their attention where they can have a role to play, and they'll get pulled away sometimes. And just a reminder, this book I think is excellent, whether you're starting out in youth ministry, whether you're looking for some fresh ideas, or to relaunch in a post-COVID world. Youth Work from Scratch by Martin Saunders, just some really helpful stuff in there, practical, accessible, documents as well that you can copy in here. It's a really good book and I would heartily recommend it. I'll put my email in the chat when we get back into the main meeting in a moment. So if you do want to chat about anything at some point, and I'm on social media as Andrew Youth Work, you'll spot me, bald head and a beard. It stands out. Actually, no, Alex is just like that as well. So maybe you won't find me. You'll find Alex instead. But that's fine. He's probably got some great advice as well for you. But thank you for coming to the workshop. I hope it's been helpful.